Kadosh, Boker Or, Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov. Yeah, Masechet Bava Kamma Daf Yudbet Amud Aleph 12a1. We were talking about yesterday that what was the difference between a Eved and a Shor. Okay, we went and we said that if a person came and he made his Eved and a Putiki is basically that you're going to designate him to pay off a debt. And then what happens is you come and you sold the Eved, a Balchov, right, could come and he could collect it, right, without any problem. Yeah, he comes and he says, right, like this. He says, but Ashor, right, Ashor, you don't do that. So what's the difference? So he said that the reason why the difference is because at the end of the day, Ashor, there's no kol. An Eved, there's a kol, meaning that when you have an Eved, everyone knows that this Eved was designated to pay off a debt. A Shor, not everyone knows that he was designated to pay off a debt. So because of that, and there's no numbers, there's no nothing, there's millions of Shors, they all look the same thing, right? So therefore, because of that, since there's no call, you cannot come and you cannot collect it. So this is where we're starting today. Levatar dinafak. So after Rav Nachman came out of the Bet Midrash, Amar lehu, right, Ula. So Ula comes and he tells the Talmidim, Hachi Amar Rabbi Elazar, this is what Rabbi Elazar says, Afilu miyatme. A Balchov could collect an Eved even from Yitomim. Now, usually we said that Yitomim you can't collect anything, meaning that if right now somebody owes money and then he passes away and now, right, the Yitomim don't understand what's going on, so usually you cannot collect anything from the Yitomim. But here we're saying that you could collect even from the Yitomim because Avadim is like Karka. So Amar Rav Nachman, he comes and he says, Ishtamtin Ula. Ula, right, did not bring this hora'ah in front of me, right, because he knows that I hold that Avadim is like metaltalin. And therefore, since it's like metaltalin, you cannot collect from Yetomim. So therefore, that's why he didn't want to say it in front of me, because if he would have said it in front of me, I would have challenged him, right? So one more time. Avadim, is it ever considered metaltalin, movable objects? Or is it considered like karka, like the ground? Karka. If you hold that it's like the ground, so technically you could collect it because at the end of the day, right, karka does not move anywhere. So therefore everyone knows about it. Everyone understands what's going on, and therefore there's no problem. But if you're going to say it's metal, then you can't. So therefore Ula came and he said you could collect it even from Yitomim because he wanted to say that Avadim are like karka, and therefore you could collect even from the Yitomim if the Eved was made out of putiki. But according to Rav Nachman, no. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, Hava Uvda beNeharda. There was a story in Neharda. Okay, there were Yitomim that their father left them over a karka to pay off the debts. The Agbu Dayane de Neharda, and the Dayanim of Neharda came and they collected from them Avadim. Okay, so they inherited slaves and they came and they collected the slaves. Hava Uvda bePumpadita. It happened in Pumpadita. The Agber Rav Chana Bar Bizna, and Rav Chana Bar Bizna came and he collected also from Avadim. So Amar lehu Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman to the Dayanim, Zilu Aduru, go give them back. Go give them back. Vilaim, and if not, Magbina lehu lapadainhu. I'm going to come and I'm going to get it from you. Meaning basically, again, remember, Rav Nachman was the same shita that he held that Avadim are like metaltalim, and since Avadim are like metaltalim, he wanted to say no, that if you're not going to come, I'm going to collect it from you guys, meaning from you, the Dayanim. I'm going to collect it from you if you don't give it back. Okay? So Amale Rava Rav Nachman asks Rava to Rav Nachman, Ha'ula ve'Rabbi Elazar, Ha'dayene dinarda, ve'Rav Chana Bar Bizna, right? All of them hold. They are Dayanim in Narda, and all of them hold that you could collect it. What's your problem? So more, come on, who do you hold like? Meaning, he comes and he says, yes, Rav Nachman, I don't understand. You have Ula, you have Rabbi Elazar, you have the Dayanim of Narda, and you have Rav Chana Bar Bizna. Every single one of them held a certain position. What do you hold? So, Kiman Svirale, Amar Lehu, so Rav Nachman comes and he tells Rava, Ana Matznita Yadana, right? I know a Braita, which actually helps me. The Tana Avimi, Bezavimi came and he taught a Braita, Prusbol. Yeah, chal ala karka, ve'eno chal ala avadim. Do you know that a prusbul is chal on karka, but it's not chal on avadim. What does that mean? Everyone remembers what's pruzbul? Which one?
The debt
To the court. But which year?
The Rosh Hashanah
Shemitah. Shemitah. Very good. Shemitah year. No, the one before the Shemitah, it's not that simple. There's a machloket, a poskim. Do you do the year before or the year after? Right? And usually we go, no, technically we do after. That's the Shulchan Aruch, but there is a shita that does it before. So sometimes they do it before as well. But what? But we do it usually the year after. Meaning the year after Shemitah is when they give her the pruzbun. Okay, so now here it says, right? So he comes and he says like this. You have it, by the way, in footnote number 6, or I don't know about you're in English, but in footnote number 6, you have it over there, right? Halacha is shekol alvaa she'avar alea sof shnat hashmita harei nishmetet v'yevshar ligvota sof shnat hashmita. Okay, so he comes and he says now like this. He says, right, as follows. He comes and he says, when we're talking about now pruzbol, what are we referring to here? A person comes and he makes a pruzbol. So the pruzbol is going to be chal ala karka. It's going to be chal on karka, right? But he comes and he says, but it's not going to be chal on the avadim. Metaltalin niknim im karka, ve'ena niknim im avadim. So metaltalin are going to be acquired with karka, but it's not going to be acquired with avadim. So you keep on seeing that avadim, right, are going to be like, right, the how do you call this? Are going to be like the metaltalin, right, and not like karka. Yeah, so he has a proof. Yeah, comes Rav Nachman, says, I'm sorry, I have a proof, I have a braita. The braita says mufurash, it's like the metaltalin, right? Then niknim mavadim. So says the Gemara, so these two horaot, which prove that avadim are like metaltalin, right? Because of that, that's how he paskin. So Rav Nachman comes and he paskins, avadim are like metaltalin, mele you cannot collect from Yitumim. So says the Gemara, lema katanai, why don't we just say it's machlok katanaim? Machalo avadim vekarkaot. Imagine a person comes and he sells avadim and karkaot, right, to his friend. Hechzik ba'avadim. If he's going to come and he's going to be machzik, right, ba'avadim, lo kana karkaot. If he's going to be machzik in the avadim, he's not going to be koneh, right, in the karka. But karkaot, he's not going to be koneh the avadim. Karkaot metaltalin, hechzik kana metaltalin. Metaltalin lo kana karka. Avadim metaltalin, hechzik ba'avadim lo kana metaltalin. Metaltalin lo kana avadim. So therefore, maybe we want to say that this is going to become a machloket. Ve'atanya, why? Because here we're saying that if you're going to acquire the avadim, you do not acquire the taltalin. If you acquire the taltalin, you weren't going to have the avadim, right? And so then 1 second, so it's not like the metaltalin. Ve'atanya, and then we learned in another bright. Echzik ba'avadim kana metaltalin, right? You are going to be kunah the metaltalin. So basically, we want to say that the same machloket between Rav Nachman and Ula and Rabbi Elazar and Dayan and Ardai and Rav Chana Bar Bizna. It's actually a machloket, tanaim. Is avadim metaltalin or is it not metaltalin? So says the Gemara, my love back me palged. That's not a machlok between them. The more savar avadim ke mekarka edame, and more savar avadim ke metaltalin. Whether you hold that avadim is like karka or is it like metaltalin, is basically an eved considered like ground, like the karka, like a piece of real estate, or is it considered like a movable object, like a car, right, or like an ox? That's what we're asking. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ika bered Ravimi, says Rav Ika, the son of Ravimi, dechule alma avadim kemekarka edamet. Sorry, according to everybody, it is considered karka. Hadetanya, in this braita that comes and teaches you kana, that if you're going to be machzik bavadim, you're going to be kana metaltalin. Shapir v'hadetanya lo kana beinan karka dunya de'arim mitzurot biyuda de lo naide. He wants to come and he wants to say like this. According to the first one that says, right, that if you're going to be machzik bavadim, you're going to be koneh the metaltalin, it actually makes sense. Because when you're going to be koneh the eved, it's like karka. So when you koneh karka, you're koneh metaltalin. If I come and I make a chazakah in a house, I automatically make a chazakah on everything which is inside the house. So if I had a sapa there, a sofa, or I had a bed, or I had a chandelier, or I had I don't know what, those are all metaltalin. Right? Okay, maybe not a chandelier is attached to, but let's say like anything which is movable, right? I don't know what. You understand? Anything which is movable, I acquire it. Because agav the karka, right? By the karka, I'm going to call it the metaltalin. But we learned in the Braita also that no, that you're not going to be konen metaltalin. He says that's only talking about karka dumya you need that the karka should be domeh to arim metzurot biyudah, right, which do not move from their places. What does that mean? The Tanambas we learned in the Mishnah and Kiddushin. So we're going back to Kiddushin, right? Remember in Kiddushin we were speaking about all the different forms of acquisitions, and now here it says in the Mishnah and Kiddushin, nechasim she'en lahem achrayut, right? Any property that does not have any type of a guarantee. For example, metaltalin. In the olden days, a metaltalin did not have a guarantee because it could disappear. You'll never see it. A karka has a guarantee because it doesn't move. So the karka stays there forever, right? It cannot move, right? But a piece of, I don't know what, a cup, it disappears. You take it from here to China tomorrow, there's nothing there. There's a achrayut. So he says, when you have nechasim she'en lahem achrayut, they are going to be acquired with nechasim, right, that has achrayut, which is going to be mikarkaim. Bekesef, v'shtar, u'v'chazakah, which means that if you made one of the kinyanim, right, to acquire the karka, automatically you're going to acquire the metaltalin, which is because it's going to come out something which is called kinyan agav. Kinyan agav means agav zeh derech agav. Like, by the way, I'm going to acquire this. So if I just acquired the karka, by the way, I'm going to acquire the metaltalin which is inside of it. So if I purchase right now his car, so that inside of his car he had a tape, I'm going to acquire the tape with the car, right? But even though the tape is metaltalin, you can move it around and take it from car to car, right? But I acquire it. Says the Gemara, how do we know that you could do this? Amar Chizkiah comes and he says, the Amar Kra, it says in a pasuk, Vayiten lahem aviyem matanot rabo lechesev uzav migdanot imare metzurot biyudah. That the father gave them a lot of presents, matanot rabot. He gave them kesef, zahav, migdanot, right, silver, gold, right, precious things, with all the cities of Yehuda, right, anim metzurot biyudah. So the pasuk is mashma that the metaltalim were acquired derech agav the cities. You didn't need to make a special acquisition on the metaltalim. The second I made an acquisition on the city, and derech agav, everything else was there as well. And therefore, since this is a mekor to kinyan agav, the Braita holds that metaltalim are only going to be acquired derech agav karka only if it's going to be a not movable karka. Right? Not movable, right? Karka. That's one event. Okay? Fine. Ika de Amre. There are those that say, okay? Amar Rav Ika Bered Ravami. Says Rav Ika, the son of Rav Ami. Dechule Alma, really be'emet, I want to answer up the stira a different way. Because remember, we just had, right, a machloke between Rav Nachman against Dayanin Arda, against Ula, against Rabbi Elazar, and against Rav Chana Bar Bizna. Okay, and he wanted to bring a proof from a Braita, and then we wanted to make it a machloket tanaim, and then we disproved that. Now we're going to try to bring another ika de amni, another version of how to understand that Braita. So Rav Ika Bared Rav Ami comes and he says like this: Dechule alma, according to all the tanaim, really be'emet the exact opposite. Avde are not going to be karka. Avde are considered metaltalim, right? So that means avadim and eved is like metaltalim, right? Hadetanya. That which we learned in the first Braita, that if you're going to be in machzik in the Eved, you're not going to acquire the metaltalin. So Shapir, right? Why? Because you cannot acquire metaltalin with metaltalin acher, right? Not because I come and I drive your car, I'm going to acquire your portable AC, your portable fan in your house, right? You cannot do that. If it's going to be karka with metaltalin, yes, because agav, the karka, I could acquire metaltalin, but one metaltalin, I cannot acquire another metaltalin. So he says, so then shapir, then it's going to be good. The Hadetanya, that which we learned in the second part of the Braita, where we said kana metaltalin, we're talking about metaltalin be'odan alav, when it's on it. Meaning like this. Let's say, right, you have let's say you have an Eved. Yeah, you have an Eved. And in the Eved's pocket, he's got a pen. Yeah, right here. Put the pen. Yeah? When you acquire the Eved we just said is metaltalin, according to the Shita. So if it's metaltalin, you cannot acquire metaltalin acher. So not because you acquire the Eved, you're going to start acquiring the boss shirt. Oh, okay. Right? You're not going to acquire the boss shirt. Understand? Right? You can acquire it. Right? But what happened is what happens if the pen is in his pocket? The pen is in his pocket. So if the pen is on him, you can acquire the metaltalin with the metaltalin.
But why not the shirt then? Why is the shirt different?
What?
Why is the shirt different?
Because the shirt was not on him. The shirt with the Yugo Basher was somewhere else.
Okay.
Right? It's somewhere else. One more time. Metaltalin cannot acquire another metaltalin. But if the metaltalin is on the other metaltalin, so I told you the pen on the shirt, and I acquire the eved, which is metaltalin. So I acquire the shirt on the eved, and I acquire the pen, right, which is metaltalin, in the shirt of the eved as well.
It's like karka.
Which is like?
It's like karka.
What does that mean?
If you acquire a metaltalin on a metaltalin, it's like when you acquire karka, everything will change.
No, because the karka, you could acquire the metaltalin, right, without any problem.
Okay.
Here, the metaltalin to another metaltalin, no, but only if it's on it. Only if it's on it. Okay? Fine. So now says the Gemara, what do I care if it's still on it? He says, Chatzer me'alecheti. It's considered a Chatzer me'alechet. The Chatzer me'alechet lo kana. And therefore, Chatzer me'alechet, you're not going to acquire it. Right? You're not going to acquire a Chatzer me'alechet. Right? What does that mean? Usually a Chatzer, you acquire everything which is in a Chatzer. But what happens if it's a Chatzer me'alechet? Chatzer me'alechet means a Chatzer which is movable. You remember we spoke about this in Gitin, that you could throw a get inside a woman's property, right? But if it's going to be a Chatzer me'alechet, which means a Chatzer which is moving, you can't. So we spoke about an eved of a woman. You remember we said that if he's tied up and he's not movable, so then yeah, technically speaking, if you put it by the eved, so then he's going to acquire it for his mistress, right, for the woman, right? But if it's going to be Chatzer me'alechet, it's not going to be acquiring it. Now, if you're going to tell me now, be'omed, we're talking about where he's standing and therefore he's not moving. Rava says, Kol she'ilu, right? Kol she'ilu me'alech lo kana, omed v'yoshev lo kana. If right now you're going to tell me that if you're going to be standing, you're not going to acquire it, so too if you're standing, meaning like this. If right now, if you're walking, do you acquire it? You're an eved. You do not acquire it. So if you do not acquire it, so then why in the world, right, would you acquire it now? He's not walking, right? If he's not walking, so therefore we're going to come and we're going to say, right, that what? That he's also not going to acquire it. Okay? That's what we're saying until now. Since we just said right now that if right now we're talking about a scenario, a case, right, where if the Eved would be walking, you cannot acquire it. So therefore, even though now the Eved is standing still, you cannot acquire it. Because kol she'ilu me'alech lo kana, omed gam lo kana. You cannot do that. That means, don't say that, 1 second, you could acquire it. Why? It could walk. The second that it could walk, even though right now it's not movable, it doesn't matter.
So he needs to be standing for you to acquire him?
No,
It
because
needs to be sitting for you to acquire
not sitting. It has to be that it cannot be mobile. That's what he says. One more time. Kol she'ilu me'alech lo kana, omed o yoshev lo kana.
So how do you connect him?
No.
Yes, be
One more time. We're talking about that you want to acquire derech agav the eved. So we said you cannot acquire derech agav the eved because that eved is considered a chatzer me'alechet, something that moves. So he's asked to give it up, but he's not moving now. He's standing still. He's not moving now. He's sitting. It doesn't matter. Kol she'ilu me'alech. It's a chatzer me'alechet. So even though right now he's omed or yoshev, you cannot connect as well. Says the Gemara, the hilchat hawat salacha, what I told you before. You remember? Bekafut, if he's tied up. If the Eved is tied up and therefore he cannot move, and that's why I told you about the get, so therefore it's going to be okay. Says the Gemara, Ve'atanya, we learned in the Braita, Hechzik bakarka kana avadim. If right now you're going to be machzik in the karka, he's going to be koneh in the avadim. So says the Gemara, hatam over there, be'omdim betocha. You're talking about that you're going to acquire the karka, right? And therefore it's going to be right inside of it. Okay, that's what he's coming and he's actually saying. So that's what you're going to be machzik, right? It's omdim betocha, which means when we said echzik bekarka kana avadim, we're talking about the avadim are inside the karka. So therefore, since you acquire the karka, you're acquiring the avadim which are in the karka. Okay, niklal. So it comes out the hay lo kana. When we just said here now lo kana, as keshen omdim betocha, you're not sitting inside of it. So hani chalach lishnai, and understood according to this lashon that says. That says Ravika and the son of Ravami, Avdi ke metaltale dami, that avadim are like metaltalim. Right? Hainu, what does that mean? Hainu, right? The omdim betocha, as if it's going to be that it's inside of it. Yes, ilolo. Ela lehach lishna, but according to this lashon, that he says avdim, right? The avadim are like metaltalim, are like harakadami, sorry. So lama li yomdim mitucha? Why do I need yomdim mitucha even without it? Right? If I sell you 10 properties in 10 different places, you guys listening? I sell you 10 properties in 10 different places. Once I make a chazakah in one of them, kana kulan, I already acquired all of them. Imagine I'm giving you 10 different properties. One is going to be right in the Edit, here in Surfside. One is going to be in the Benonit, right? And one of them is going to be in the Ziborit. But it doesn't matter. One's going to be, not only that, it's going to be different places in the world.
What do you mean you're doing a chazakah?
Once you do a chazakah in one of them, right? In one of them, I come, I put a fence, I lock the door, I change the locks, all the different concepts of a chazakah, right? So what happens, right? What happens is that once you do a chazakah in one of them, you acquire all 10 fields. That's halakha. So same thing. But according to reasoning, the hachlishna, according to this lashon, the amar that he says, avde kemetaltelin dami, that an eved is like metaltelin, right? He comes and he says, lama li omeh betocha then. So why do I need omeh betocha? Why does he have to be inside? If you're going to tell me that an eved is metaltelin, why does he have to stand inside of it? You told me kiryan agav. What is agav? If I acquire one field, I acquire all the fields, and therefore I'm going to acquire the metaltelin. So why is it that the eved has to be? Why is the we're going to say here that he has to be omed betocha? Why does he have to be omed betocha? Okay, right? You bet amubet 12b. Hakaimalan, we already paskin delo ba'inan sevunin. You do not need the metaltelin. You're going to be munach in the karka, right? Everyone understood? One more time. We said that a metaltelin, to acquire another metaltelin, it has to be on top of it. That's why I gave you the example of the pen on the shirt, on the eved. But when we're talking about you acquire the karka, you're going to acquire the metaltelin. The metaltelin do not need to be in the karka. Yeah, they don't need to be in the karka. So the question is, why over here are you going to tell me that it needs to be in the karka? They don't need to be in the karka. But what are you going to tell me now? Maybe there's a difference in the metaltelin itself. Maybe there's a difference between metaltelin which are naide and metaltelin which are not naide, which means there are certain types of metaltelin which they move. They're movable metaltelin. And there's other metaltelin which are. So when did we say that you could acquire metaltelin? Right? Like what we said, exactly, very good. Meaning metaltelin that don't move. So for example, a fridge. Does a fridge have legs? No, it doesn't move. It's metaltelin. You can move it, but it doesn't move. So if it doesn't move, even if the fridge is going to be now in I don't know where, Honolulu, yeah, I could acquire it. Derech agav, huh? Exactly.
That's a counter example.
Yeah, but right, that's the concept. The concept is that you're going to have, but there's a difference between metaltelin which move, metaltelin which don't move. Metaltelin which move have to be on it. Metaltelin which do not move don't have to be on it. Okay. So that's what he says. The same thing here is maybe it's different karka which moves and karka which doesn't move. Avda, an eved, is karka, but he moves. Meaning it's completely different halachot. Meaning that we want to say that this is a different halachah than everything else. Why? Because it's not the same. Even if you would say, tell me it's metaltelin, or you're going to tell me that it's going to be like karka, it's movable. It's something different than the normal of the whether it's karka or metaltelin. So says the Gemara, hatam over there, right? In the case of Shmuel, that you're selling 10 fields, sadna de'ara chadu, it's all one gush adama. Meaning the land is all the same land. What's the difference between the land which is going to be here in Florida, whether it's going to be in Texas, whether it's going to be in Los Angeles, whether it's going to be in New York, whether it's all the same land. It's all one gush of land. So therefore it's not different. Meaning it's not like a different entity. It's all the same entity. It's all attached. Right? Then I don't want to get into different continents and but like kilo, but a kavanah, we're all in one land. It's all one land, so it's all one thing. Fine, 2 dogs. Okay? Until here we're clear. Nechasim she'en bahem meilah. We're talking about now nechasim that do not have meilah. Okay, this is what we're talking about. Meilah hu delet behu. Do you know meilah, right? Does not have. Ha mikdash kodshe, right? But he says, what does that mean? We're talking about what happens right now if the mazik is going to be mitchayev b'tashum nezek. It's only if he's going to be mazik nechasim that do not have milah. So if you have milah, is that it's consecrated to the Bet HaMikdash, and therefore if you benefit from it, it's called milah. You have to pay back the keren pay back a fifth, and you have to bring a korban milah. Okay, so when we say here milah udelet, you don't know milah. Ha mikdash kachim, it's going to be a gdesh. Mantana. So who's this Tana? So it says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says the kadashim kalim. We're talking about kadashim kalim, and we're going in the shita of Rabbi Yosef Gilileh. Tamar mamon balinu. Because according to shita Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, kadashim kalim is money of the owners. Uma'alam al ba'ashem is coming to include the rabot called the kadashim kalim. Shen mamonot, which is his money. These are the words of Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, which means like this. Remember that there's kadshe kadashim and kadashim kalim. Kadshe kadashim is, for example, a chatat, an ula, an asham. Kadashim kalim, you say it every single morning. Habechor, v'maaser, v'pesach, kadashim kalim, right? Shlamim. There's certain things which are kadashim kalim. So kadashim kalim, right? There's differences in where you have to do the shchita. There's differences, other differences as well, right? But the concept that we were talking about here is that when you have these differences, whose money does it belong to? So therefore, according to Shtat Abisegel, Kadashim Kalim are Mamon Ba'alim. They belong to the owners. Because that means even though you're bringing it as a korban to the Bet HaMikdash, the money, right, the value belongs to the owners. These are the words of Abisegel. So ask the Gemara Tanamil into the Mishnah, Ham Kadesh V'Chilko Ben Mekodesh Kadashim Ben Mekodesh Kalim. Huh? Ena Mekudeshet. So he comes and he says, 1 second, but if you're going to be Mekadesh, whether in Kodesh Kadashim or in Kadashim Kalim, you're not going to be Mekudeshet, right? So why don't we just say that it's not going to be like Rabbi Yosef Gilileh? Yeah? So the answer is the Gemara, Afilu Tema, even if you're going to tell me Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, Ki Amar Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, when did Rabbi Yosef Gilileh say this? Mechayim. Right? When they're alive, meaning the animal is still alive. Aval la'achar shchita, but after shchita, Afilu Rabbi Yosef Gilileh modeh, even according to Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, is going to be modeh, dechi kazachu, mishulchan gavoa kazachu. When you're going to be zocheh, you're going to be zocheh from shulchan gavoa. Okay? That means when you're going to be zocheh, you're zocheh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's shulchan gavoa. That's the pshat. Okay? That means once you do the shchita, the korban, the entire thing becomes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then when you're going to have other chalakim, which are going to be left over for human beings, right, then it's going to be kilu that you're taking it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not you're taking it from yourself. Umechayim, says the Gemara, umechayim yamar. Are we talking about that they're still alive? He says, Vatnam yoyto the Mishnah, Bechor, mochrin oto, tam chai, ubalmu. So when you're talking about now Bechor, and you're going to sell it, right, when it's still going to be alive, or a balmum, when it's still going to be alive, shachut, umekachik bot isha, you could be mekadesh isha with it. The Amar of Nachman Revua says of Nachman Revua, Lo Shana, what are we dealing with? Ela Bechor bezman hazeh, only a Bechor nowadays. The kevan de lo chalzi lakava, because since it's not fitting for bringing it as a korban, itlu lekohanim zechiyah begavayhu. You have zechiyah to the kohanim, right, by it. Aval bizman bet hamikdash kayam, but when you have the bet hamikdash, which is going to be kayam, the chazi lakava that is fitting for bringing it as a korban, no, you're not going to bring it. So veit ve'Rav Nachman. So ask Rava to Rav Nachman, u'ma'alamal ba'Hashem. You're going to be ma'alamal ba'Hashem. There are both kadashim kalim. That's going to include kadashim kalim, which is going to be mamono. Okay, these are the words of Rabbi Yosef HaGilileh. Umeshani, but we answer Ravina v'vechor v'chutz haaretz. Really, we're talking about be'emet. When we say kadashim kalim or mamon balim, even when the Bet HaMikdash is going to be chayam, we're talking about a bechor which is born in chutz haaretz. And according to Rabbi Shimon, the Amar, im ba'u tmimim yikrevu, im ba'u in lechatchila lo. What does that mean? Meaning that according to Shita of Rabbi Shimon, only if you brought the Bechor from Chutz Haaretz, so it's Israel, and you brought it Tamim, you bring it onto the Mizbeach. But only if you brought it. But Be'emen lechatchila, you do not bring it. Meaning, if a Bechor is born in Chutz Haaretz, according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, you let it graze until it gets a blemish, and then, right, you're going to eat it in its place. Why? Because Bechor in Chutz Haaretz eno omed la'akrava, so that's why it's considered mamon be'alim. Meaning, again, there's only Shitat Rabbi Shimon. It's not according to everybody. According to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, a Bechor that's born in Chutz Haaretz, you let it graze until it gets a mum, then you eat it, but that's why it's considered mamon be'alim. It's considered the money, right, of the ba'alim. Now, if you're going to tell me that according to, right, if you're going to tell me now that according to Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, it's mamono mechayim, so lishne, why don't we actually just answer ha Rabbi Yosef Gilileh ha Rabbanan? This is Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, and this is going to be Rabbanan. Okay, and that's what we're actually answering. So it says until the two dots, right? So you come. Why don't we just answer? One is Rabbi Yosef Gilileh, right? That he says kadashim kalim belong to the owners, and one is Rabbanan. He says no. that it belongs to Hashem. So he says, Matanot Kiuna Kamarta. We're talking about Matanot Kiuna. Shana Matanot Kiuna, Matanot Kiuna, right? You remember that the Matanot Kiuna is one of the 24 Kohanim get certain presents, right? Right? The real Kohanim, yeah, they're going to get certain presents. So he comes and he says, right, when they're talking about certain presents that they're going to be getting.
Easy. Go easy on the corner.
So therefore, basically, what we're coming and saying, the Kohanim, they get the 24 different presents of the Kiuna, the 24 different presents of Kiuna, they come to him through Hashem. Meaning, even though it could be that the guy is coming and giving it to him, he's zocheh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, that's why it's completely different, right? Because he's being zocheh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's not going to be the money of the human being. So